Tonight we drift out onto the Pacific in a wooden canoe, where the ocean looks like a sheet of black glass and the stars hang above you like someone spilled salt across velvet. You can hear water slipping past the hull in slow, lazy whispers. You can smell coconut fiber rope, sun-warmed wood, and the faint tang of sea spray that somehow always tastes like it's been flirting with you. And you're about to do something wildly unreasonable. You're about to navigate thousands of miles without a compass, without a map, without a glowing phone screen yelling at you to turn left in 200 meters. Just you, the sky, the sea, and a few birds with suspiciously confident attitudes. And yes, you probably won't survive this. Not because you're weak, but because after 10 minutes you'd be asking, "So, are we there yet?" And the ocean would respond by giving you sunburn in places you didn't know existed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, let me know where you are in the world and what your local time is. There's something oddly comforting about imagining all of us scattered across the planet, collectively trying to fall asleep while learning about extremely patient people who refuse to get lost. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're sitting low in a canoe that doesn't feel like a canoe so much as a long, narrow creature made of wood and lashings. The sea is calm, but not still. It never truly stops moving. It breathes. The canoe rocks gently, and you find yourself trying to sit in a way that looks competent. This is difficult because your body has been trained by modern furniture. Your spine expects chairs. Your knees expect legroom. Your brain expects snacks that come in shiny wrappers. But this is not that kind of journey. The canoe carries you forward as if it has been doing this forever, which, to be fair, it kind of has. The dark water slides beneath you in long, rolling breaths. Every now and then, a swell lifts the hull, and you rise with it like you're being gently offered to the sky. You're not exactly relaxed yet. You're still in that modern human state where you keep checking your surroundings for a plug socket. But your body begins to understand something your brain refuses to accept. The canoe is steady. It doesn't fight the ocean, cooperates with it. It's like watching someone dance with a partner who is 10,000 times bigger. And as the night deepens, you start to see the canoe differently. Not as a boat, as a floating universe. The platform between the twin hulls is wide enough for supplies, for people, for a small world of activity. You can smell wood and salt and old rope. You can feel the texture of woven mats beneath your hands, rough, but comforting, like the world's oldest picnic blanket. The hulls themselves are long and narrow, cutting through the water with efficiency. The way they sit low makes you feel close to the sea, which is both poetic and mildly terrifying. You could reach down and touch the ocean if you wanted. You do not want. The ocean is beautiful, yes, but it's also the kind of thing that will swallow you without even making eye contact. You shift your weight carefully, trying not to look like the weak link in the chain. Everyone else moves like they were born on water, which they basically were. Meanwhile, you move like someone trying to stand up in a canoe while holding a bowl of soup. And the canoe responds to every movement. It's sensitive. It's alive. Traditional Polynesian voyaging canoes were often lashed together rather than nailed. That's a mainstream historical fact that tends to surprise people who assume old boats were just hammered into existence. The night keeps unfolding above you, wider and more crowded with stars than any sky you've ever seen. It feels like the heavens have decided to show off, just because you're here. The canoe drifts onward, and the gentle rocking begins to feel less like a threat and more like a lullaby. You lie back on the woven mat, staring upward, and your eyes start to trace the constellations instinctively, because humans can't help themselves. We love patterns. We see faces in clouds. We see animals in the stars. We see meaning everywhere, even in our toaster settings. But out here, the patterns aren't just pretty. They're practical. They're survival. The navigator shifts slightly, sitting upright as if the stars are speaking directly to them. You can tell this is the part of the night they've been waiting for. The sky is now fully dark, and the horizon is clean and sharp, like a line drawn with ink. And then it happens. They point. Not dramatically, not like a movie wizard, just a quiet gesture toward the eastern edge of the sea, where a bright star is rising. You follow the line of their finger and see it. A single light, climbing slowly out of the water. It looks like the ocean is giving birth to a star. And in a way, for navigation, it kind of is. This is where you begin to learn about the star compass, one of the most famous tools of Polynesian wayfinding. Not a physical compass, of course. No metal needle trembling over a magnet. Nothing you can buy in a store. This compass exists entirely in the navigator's mind. It's a mental map of the horizon, divided into directional points, each associated with the rising and setting of particular stars. In some traditions, the horizon is imagined as a circle of houses where stars live, places they rise from and return to. So if you know which star rises in which house, you know your direction. Simple concept, impossible execution, because your brain immediately tries to protest. Wait, stars move. They rise and set. Your eyes stay on the sky for a long time until the stars begin to blur slightly. Not because they're fading, but because your eyelids keep getting heavier. The canoe rocks beneath you in a steady rhythm, and your body starts to accept that, yes, this is your bed now. Not a memory foam mattress. Not a weighted blanket. Just wood, rope, and the gentle judgment of the Pacific Ocean. You blink slowly, and in that slow blinking you realize something important. The navigator isn't just using knowledge. They're using discipline, because knowing where a star rises is one thing. Staying calm enough to notice it, hour after hour, night after night, is something else entirely. This section of the voyage feels quieter. The crew has settled. The sail hums softly. The water slips past the hull in a hush that sounds like someone brushing velvet. The navigator remains awake, eyes moving in small, controlled motions, never frantic, never distracted. And you start to understand that the real skill of wayfinding is not some mystical ability to see the invisible. It's the ability to pay attention longer than your brain wants to. You try it. You decide very bravely to train your own eyes. You sit up and stare at the horizon, trying to copy the navigator's calm posture. Immediately, your brain begins listing complaints. Your neck is stiff. Your eyes are tired. Your legs feel weird. Your nose itches. Your thoughts wander. This is why you are not a master navigator. You are a master snack seeker. Still, you force yourself to focus. You stare at the horizon line, where sea and sky meet. At first it's just darkness, a soft band of nothing. But slowly details emerge. You start noticing that the horizon isn't perfectly black. It has faint gradations, slightly lighter in one direction, slightly darker in another. Some patches look hazier, as if thin cloud is smudging the edge of the world. And you realize this is exactly what the navigator is doing. The canoe keeps moving forward, and the night feels like it's thickening around you. Not in a scary way, more like a blanket being gently pulled up over your shoulders. The stars are still there, bright and steady, but your attention begins to drift downward, away from the sky and toward the sea itself. Because the navigator does. You watch them, half awake, half dreaming, as their gaze lowers to the water. Their eyes narrow slightly, not with suspicion, but with focus, like they're reading a page of text that most people don't even know exists. And this is where you realize something important. The ocean is not random. It only looks random if you don't know how to read it. The canoe rises, dips, and rises again. The motion is slow, long, like the breathing of some massive creature. Your stomach feels the rhythm. Your spine feels it. Even your teeth feel it, like a subtle vibration traveling through your bones. You begin to notice that the canoe's movement isn't uniform. Sometimes the swell lifts you from the right. Sometimes it lifts from the left. Sometimes it feels like the whole canoe is being gently pushed forward, as if the ocean itself is impatient. And the navigator is paying attention to all of it. This is the art of reading swells, one of the most astonishing elements of Polynesian and Micronesian wayfinding. Mainstream historical fact: navigators in many Pacific cultures, especially in places like the Caroline Islands and parts of Polynesia, were known to use swell patterns to maintain direction over long distances. The ocean's wave systems can travel far from their origin, meaning that a swell created by winds hundreds of miles away can still be detected and used as a directional clue. The sea, in other words, carries messages across the world. You imagine it like a giant watery mail system, except instead of envelopes, it delivers long rolling waves that slap you in the face. The swells keep rolling beneath you, steady as a heartbeat, and you start to feel as if the canoe is floating not on water, but on time itself. The ocean's rhythm becomes so familiar that you almost forget how absurd your situation is. Almost, because if you really think about it, you are lying on a wooden platform in the middle of the Pacific, trusting your survival to a person who navigates by vibes, birds, and the general mood of the sea. And yet you feel safe. The night air is warm, and the wind is soft. It brushes your skin with the gentle persistence of someone trying to get your attention without being rude. The sail hums quietly above you, and the canoe continues forward in its calm, unwavering glide. Then the navigator shifts again. They lift their heads slightly, like an animal sensing something in the distance. Their eyes narrow toward the horizon, but not at the water this time. At the sky, not the stars, the clouds. You sit up, following their gaze, and you notice something you hadn't paid much attention to before. The clouds are not just clouds. They are shapes, layers, and colors. They aren't randomly scattered. They form patterns, and those patterns mean something. This is where you learn about one of the most quietly magical tools of Polynesian wayfinding: reading the sky for the presence of land. Because islands don't just sit there passively. They change the atmosphere around them. They create their own weather, their own cloud formations, their own subtle glow. And the navigator is looking for that. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian navigators are documented as using cloud reflections and cloud behavior as indicators of land. Islands can cause clouds to form above them due to rising warm air and moisture, and shallow lagoons can reflect light differently than deep ocean water, creating a faint brightness on the underside of clouds. So even if you can't see land, you might see land's shadow in the sky. You stare at the horizon again. The canoe keeps sliding forward into the softer, greener-smelling air, and the sky ahead feels different now. Not brighter exactly, but fuller, like the darkness has more texture. You're still watching the clouds, still noticing that faint glow beneath them, when something else interrupts the calm. A shape crosses the sky, fast, silent. You blink, and for a moment you wonder if you imagined it. But then you hear it. A faint flap of wings, a whisper of motion. Another shape passes overhead. A bird. The navigator's head tilts instantly, like they've just heard a familiar name spoken in a crowd. Their eyes track the bird without hurry, without surprise. Because birds are not random out here. Birds are messengers. Birds are clues. Birds are, in the most polite way possible, feathered little navigational assistants who don't know they're employed. You sit up straighter, suddenly interested. It's amazing how quickly your brain wakes up when something moves. And as you watch the bird vanish into the darkness, you realize you've entered another chapter of wayfinding. Reading seabirds like living signposts. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian navigators used seabird behavior, especially flight patterns and species habits, as indicators of proximity to land. Certain birds, like terns and noddas, forage far out at sea during the day but return to land to roost at night. Observing their direction in late afternoon or early morning can hint at where land lies beyond the horizon. In other words, birds commute, and you can follow their commute like you're stalking someone's daily routine on social media. Only this is less creepy and more life-saving. The navigator points toward the horizon where the bird disappeared. The crew member nearest them murmurs something back. You can't hear the words, but you can feel the meaning. That bird mattered. You strain your eyes, hoping to see another one. It's hard in the darkness, but soon enough you do. The birds slowly disappear into the darkness, and the canoe continues forward as if it's following a path you still can't see. The air grows warmer, thicker, and more interesting. It's no longer just salt and wind. It's layered now, like the ocean has started seasoning itself. You sit quietly, letting your senses take over, and you realize something slightly embarrassing. You have been living your entire life using only like 12% of your sensory abilities. Out here, you can't afford that kind of laziness. The navigator's attention shifts again. Their eyes lower to the water, scanning for shapes, for movement, for anything drifting on the surface. And soon enough, you see it too. A small piece of wood floats by, rocking gently in the swell. It's pale against the dark sea, like a bone. Driftwood. Not much, but enough. The navigator watches it pass, and you can see the calculation happening behind their calm face. Driftwood is not just debris. It's evidence. Mainstream historical fact. Polynesian navigators used floating vegetation, driftwood, and other signs of flotsam as indicators of nearby land. Currents can carry branches, leaves, coconuts, and even entire mats of plant material away from islands. Seeing an increase in such debris can suggest you're within reach of land. The ocean, once again, is speaking. It's leaving little breadcrumbs. You watch the driftwood disappear behind the canoe, and then you spot another piece. And another. Small fragments, scattered, but noticeable. The navigator nods slightly, as if the ocean has just confirmed what the clouds and birds already hinted at. You inhale again, slowly. The scent of vegetation is stronger now. Still faint, but unmistakable. You smell damp leaves. You smell something earthy, like soil after rain. You even think you smell flowers, though that could just be your brain being overly poetic. Or overly tired. Probably both. The surf grows louder, though it's still distant enough to sound like a soft, steady whisper. It's not the harsh crash of waves right beside you. It's more like a low rumble, a reminder that somewhere ahead, the ocean is meeting something solid. You lie back again, letting the canoe rock you, and your mind drifts into that sleepy space between alertness and dreaming. But then you remember something important. This entire system, stars, swells, birds, clouds, driftwood, only works if the navigator can remember it all. Not just vaguely, precisely. And you begin to understand that the most powerful navigational tool on this canoe isn't the sail. It isn't the steering paddle. It isn't even the sky. It's memory. A trained, disciplined memory shaped like a map. The navigator sits quietly, eyes half-lidded, as if they're listening to a song you can't hear. And in a way, they are. Because for many Polynesian cultures, navigation knowledge is stored in chants, stories, and oral tradition. The routes aren't written down on parchment. They're sung, recited, remembered. Mainstream historical fact. Polynesian societies relied heavily on oral transmission of knowledge, including genealogies, myths, and practical skills like navigation. Navigational knowledge was often passed from master to apprentice through long-term training, sometimes involving chants that encoded star paths, island sequences, and environmental cues. In other words, the map is a story, and the story is the map. You sit up slightly, watching the navigator's lips move faintly. They might be murmuring a chant under their breath, or they might simply be counting stars, marking time, keeping track of their position. Either way, you can feel the weight of tradition in that quiet moment. Because if the navigator forgets something, you don't just miss an exit. You miss an island. You miss land. You miss survival. And suddenly, your own memory feels inadequate. The canoe glides onward, and the air is now unmistakably different. It smells alive. It smells like leaves, damp earth, and warm stone. Somewhere ahead, an island is breathing quietly in the dark, and the canoe is slipping toward it like a secret. The surf sound is louder now, still not close enough to feel dangerous, but close enough to feel real. It's a constant low roar, like distant applause from an audience you haven't met yet. And through all of this, the navigator remains steady. They sit in the stern like a quiet ruler of the night, not because they want attention, but because the entire voyage depends on them. Their posture is relaxed, but their awareness is sharp. You can sense it in the way they hold their shoulders, the way their gaze moves in slow, deliberate patterns. You start to understand something about the navigator's role. They are not just a person with knowledge. They are a person with authority. In many Polynesian societies, navigators, sometimes called wayfinders, held a special status. They were trusted with the lives of others, with the success of migrations, with trade routes, with political alliances between islands. Mainstream historical fact: in many Pacific cultures, navigators were part of an elite class of specialists, often trained through apprenticeship and sometimes associated with priestly or chiefly roles. Their knowledge could be considered sacred, and their responsibilities extended beyond simple steering. In other words, the navigator isn't just the driver. They're the strategist, the spiritual anchor, the one who keeps everyone from becoming a cautionary tale. You glance at the crew, and you notice how they treat the navigator. They don't interrupt. They don't question every decision. They don't hover anxiously. They trust. And trust is not automatic. Trust is earned. You imagine the navigator as a younger apprentice, learning under an elder. The canoe slows, and the ocean's rhythm changes again. The swells feel less clean, less smooth, as if they're being interrupted by something ahead. The surf sound is now close enough to feel like it's vibrating through the air, a low constant roar that makes your chest subtly hum along with it. You're nearing land, which is exciting, and also, if you think about it too much, mildly terrifying. Because now you're approaching the part of the voyage where the ocean stops being endless and starts being full of sharp objects. Reefs, shallows, hidden rocks, all the things the ocean politely kept out of the way while you were drifting in the deep. The crew becomes more active. Quietly, efficiently, like people who have done this before. Paddles are in hands. Supplies are checked. Lashings are tightened. Someone adjusts a bundle of gourds, making sure it won't roll around at the worst possible moment. And suddenly, you realize something funny. Out in the open ocean, the canoe felt almost peaceful. Now, as you get closer to land, it feels like you're entering a busy neighborhood with no streetlights. The navigator stays calm, but their focus sharpens. They watch the water ahead, the horizon, the sound of surf, the wind direction. You sit up, wanting to help, but you quickly realize you have no idea what helping would look like here. You can't offer to hold the map. You can't open Google Earth. You can't even contribute a useful snack. So you do what modern humans do best in unfamiliar situations. You just sit there and try not to make it worse. The crew begins paddling in a slow rhythm, and the canoe responds with a slightly more controlled movement. The sail is lowered or adjusted so wind doesn't push you into danger. The canoe feels more deliberate now, like it's tiptoeing. And in the midst of this careful approach, you notice something surprisingly normal. People are hungry. Because yes, even sacred voyages involve hunger. The lagoon water is calmer now, and the canoe feels like it's been gently released from the ocean's grip. The swells that once rocked you like a cradle have softened into small ripples, as if the sea has decided to behave for once. Which is nice. It's always comforting when the largest body of water on Earth temporarily stops trying to kill you. The air is warm and thick with the smell of land. You can hear faint sounds now. Distant insects, maybe a bird call from somewhere in the trees. The night is still dark, but it no longer feels endless. It feels contained, sheltered, like you've stepped into a quiet room after standing outside in a storm. But the voyage isn't over, because now you're close enough to land for the real chaos to begin. And by chaos, I mean weather, because out here, storms don't politely announce themselves. They just arrive. The navigator is still alert, still scanning the sky. They've guided the canoe through open ocean and reef channels, but now they're watching something else. A shift in wind. You feel it too. The breeze that had been steady suddenly changes direction. It brushes across your face colder than before, like someone opened a door to a different room. The sail flutters. The crew notices instantly. Someone murmurs to another, and paddles are adjusted. The navigator looks up at the clouds, which are now thick and towering above the island. The clouds that once seemed like comforting signs of land now look heavier, darker, and slightly suspicious. And you realize the island is not just shelter. It's also a storm factory. Mainstream historical fact: islands can create localized weather patterns, including sudden squalls, because land heats differently than ocean water and causes air to rise, forming clouds and rain. Mountainous islands especially can generate fast-changing weather. So as you approach land, You also approach unpredictable winds, rain, and sudden gusts. The canoe glides through the calmest water you've felt all night. After the squall, the lagoon seems almost unreal, smooth, dark, and reflective, like polished stone. The stars above shimmer faintly in the surface, making it feel like you're floating through space instead of water. The air is still now, heavy with the scent of wet leaves and warm sand. The sound of insects is louder, a constant soft chorus from the shore, as if the island is humming itself back to sleep after the rain. And you're close. So close that you can hear the reef behind you, still roaring faintly, like an ocean guardian keeping watch. The navigator's posture changes. They lean forward slightly, eyes narrowed toward the water ahead. The lagoon is calmer, but this is where danger becomes more precise. Because reefs don't stop being dangerous just because you're inside the lagoon. Now the threats are shallows, coral heads, hidden rocks, and tricky currents. The canoe moves slowly, guided by paddles. The sail is down. This is careful work. You watch the water surface, and even in the dim starlight you can see subtle differences in color. Some patches look darker, deeper water. Some patches look lighter, shallow sand or coral beneath. Mainstream historical fact: Polynesian navigators and coastal sailors often read watercolor to identify reefs, sandbars, and channels. Shallow water reflects light differently, and coral reefs can create distinct pale patches compared to deep blue ocean. This isn't just guesswork. It's a practice skill like reading terrain. And suddenly you understand why island communities develop such sharp observational abilities. When the sea is your road, you learn to read it the way a mountain hiker reads a trail. The navigator gestures slightly, and the paddlers adjust course, steering toward a darker band of water. That's the channel, the safe route. The canoe glides forward, and you can feel the water shifting beneath you. You sit in the clearing, the firelight flickering softly across the woven mats and palm trunks. The air is warm and heavy with damp earth, smoke, and the sweet smell of crushed leaves. Somewhere in the trees, insects buzz in a steady chorus, like the island is singing itself to sleep. Your body feels strange on land. Not bad, just confused. Your legs still expect the gentle rocking of the canoe. Your balance is slightly off, as if the ground is too stable to be trusted. You shift your weight and feel the earth hold you firmly, like it's trying to reassure you. Yes, this is solid, you can stop wobbling now. But the ocean is still present. You can hear it in the distance, beyond the reef, a low continuous roar like a reminder that you were just out there, in the dark, being extremely brave and extremely uncomfortable. The crew settles in. Supplies are stacked.